Hey everybody, this is Rev J with Rev J Rides. I'm just on a good road heading toward a Mexican food restaurant that I'd like to go eat at for lunch today. Going to make a couple of rounds at a couple of different Harley Davidson dealerships where I've been to pray with people, friends, and whatnot. As the state chaplain for Faith Riders, I try to get by and see folks in these different dealerships. Got a lot of good relationships, and if they have prayer needs or family needs or something like that, I want to be there for them. Anyways, as I'm riding along with nothing really on my mind except for lunch, one of the things that came to my mind was a scripture found in Revelation chapter 3. Now, I believe it's verse 19, but to be honest with you, it's probably been a little while, probably close to a year since I've looked that up. I know it's been at least 7-8 months, anyways, since I've looked it up. So I think it's Revelation 3:19. I do know that it says this, and I'm quoting a different translation from normal, because the translation I'm going to quote is one that I memorized it in a long time ago. And it says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. He that hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and sup with him and he with me." Now, let's start again. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Who is the I? Well, it's Jesus. Whose door is he standing at knocking? Well, actually, it's a church. It's a church. And in Revelation 3, there were 7 churches. Well, it's Revelation 2 and 3. There were several churches mentioned, 7 of them actually. And in those 7 churches, there were some that had done good things, and some that had done bad things, and some that had done a little of both. I'm not sure which church this was right off the top of my head that he was speaking to, but he was speaking to a church. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. All right, so Jesus is knocking at the door of this church. Now, you might say, why would anybody have to knock at the door of a church? I'm used to, in the United States of America, or many other parts of the world, if you're watching this from another part of the world, I'm used to doors being wide open. You don't have to knock at them. Now, here's the deal. We think of church as a place that we meet at once or twice, sometimes 3 times a week. A place. Well, back in their day, back in the time when Jesus would have been saying this, or, some 50, 60 years after Jesus' ascension into heaven, and now John writing this letter, this apocalypse, this prophecy. At that time, so you're talking 1 generation or so after Jesus ascended into heaven when this was written, many churches were hidden churches, secret churches, if you will. Okay? And so you might have had a secret knock. You might have had a, knock and make sure they know who this is before they let you in, because if they let you in to come worship and pray with them, you could be a spy from the government, from the Roman Empire or something like that. And they might be coming in to kill you. So we don't know that it was a secret knock necessarily. That would sort of make sense. But behold, I, Jesus, stand at the door and knock. In other words, will you recognize me and let me in? Okay? Will you recognize me and let me in? Well, some of those churches, those 7, probably would not have recognized Jesus. They weren't doing things very Christ-like. Their ways seem to indicate they really just didn't know Jesus at all. So, when he's saying, would you recognize me? It's possible that this particular church might not recognize him. I wonder about today. Are there churches that Jesus wouldn't even be recognized in? Maybe they have wonderful bands or wonderful preachers, or, maybe the people inside smile and seem to say the right things, but maybe their hearts aren't right. Maybe they don't have a heart like Jesus does. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't recognize Jesus. Who does Jesus reach out to? Well, he reaches out to people who, first of all, have a need, and they know that they have a need. And so he reaches out to them. But a lot of churches don't reach out to people in need. And then there's a lot of hatred in churches. That wouldn't look much like Jesus at all. There's a lot of rage. There's a lot of gossip. There's a lot of slander. There's these things that exist within churches that never existed within Jesus' life. So they might not recognize Jesus. So again, he said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. He that hears my voice, hears my voice. So do these churches hear the voice of God? Do they hear the voice of Jesus? Or do they only hear their own voice? This is what I want. This is what I think it should be like. These are my friends. These are the people that I love. I love them, and we don't need any more. And you may think I'm making that up, but there are churches that seem to be very content with their own people and no longer reach out to those in need. No longer reach out to those in need of Jesus. The lost people who need him. So, I don't know that they would hear his voice. They've been so used to hearing their own voice that they may not even recognize the voice of Jesus. There's another place in Scripture, in the Gospel of John, where Jesus talks about his sheep know his voice. Well, it's possible that church that he was speaking to might not know his voice, just like there's churches today who might not know the voice of Jesus. Behold, I stand at the door and knock, Jesus said. He that hears my voice and opens the door. Now, we've got to have an open door to Jesus. And I don't care what church it is. I don't care which corner you're on or what brand you have on your sign out front. What style of worship you have inside your sanctuary, how you dress, whether you wear a suit and tie or a biker vest, or anything in between. I don't care who you are. If you don't recognize Jesus' voice and you don't open the door for him to come in and take control of your congregation, be the one in charge, then you don't have a church. You have a club. The church is not a club. And that's basically what we see in many places around the world, especially in the United States. I can't say about everywhere, but a lot of churches operate more like a club than a church. So I would just like to say to you, be careful.
Hey, hit like, share, and subscribe, please. God bless.